Matt Johnson here, another episode of Deck Talk. Welcome. Thanks for watching this. Today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to discuss top water applications, namely the buzzbait. As we get here into the end of August, a lot of guys start to turn towards deep presentations, those sort of applications that get fish in the boat. I'm going to discuss buzzbaits and talk about how we can get buzzbaits to tune right, how to swim and move from left to right, and how to make a lot of noise and racket and vibration. So we're going to go through some options here, show you some ways to manipulate and tweak the buzzbaits, and then we'll get on the water and show how some of these work and see if we can catch a few bass throwing some of these presentations. And then stay tuned after this episode. The following episode, just to give you a teaser, is going to be branching off of this topic. We're going to not just touch on buzzbaits, but we're going to talk on manipulating your presentation. So after this, stay tuned. There'll be almost a part two, kind of a segue to this segment of Deck Talk, that will talk about manipulating plastics, adding different variables, all those sorts of things. But for today, let's have some fun. Let's see if we can get some top water explosions on camera and have a good time here talking about buzzbaits, racket, noise, excitement. So let's see what I got here and we'll talk about them as we go. First things first, the types of buzzbaits available out there on the market. There's a lot of them out there nowadays and they all work pretty darn well. I've really been using a lot of the baits by either Flaming Lures or the company Persuader. Again, there's so many options out there, and for me, I like a lot of noise. I like to shoot a lot of water, so I will actually take some of these, buy a handful, onesie, twosies of certain brands, and I'll test them. I'll go to the local pond and make some casts, bend the blades certain ways, do those sorts of things, add skirts, add tails, whatever you might do. I've even added some weight to these so they actually, when I let them go, they will sink faster, then I can rip them up to the surface. Because buzzbaits can be too full, and this is one thing a lot of guys don't consider when they throw a buzzbait, is it's a surface bait, and it's a phenomenal surface bait, and that's how most of them are used. But I encourage you as well, is I'll actually let it sink under pockets of lily pads and fish it like a spinnerbait under those areas, and I've caught a lot of fish doing that. So you can actually let these baits sink and fish them just like you would a spinnerbait. So it's actually twofold, so you can rip the surface up and churn the water and make a lot of noise and vibration and a lot of racket and call fishing from a distance, or you can actually swim it under pieces of cover and all those sorts of things. So I use this in several different ways, whether I'm fishing on the surface or as a retrieve mechanism, just like you would a spinnerbait. So buzzbait, this one happens to be just chartreuse and white. It's a good go-to color of mine for a lot of different water types, and the fish can see it pretty well. And then this happens to be, has a double spin. You can see it there, it's got a blade, and then inside that blade, there's another blade. And what that does, and the way I found these ones to be very fond of these, is that they really kick out a lot of water and make a lot of noise and vibration and clack a ton. So this is just another option. You know, single bladed buzzbaits, those work well. You can get some that have little willow tanglies that dangle down, and then they actually click, 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 click on their way through. So it's not just shooting water, it's not just the natural noise of the buzzbait. There's an accessory on there that makes it click even louder. So again, my biggest piece of advice when selecting a buzzbait would be grab a handful of them. Maybe have 1, 2, 3, 4 different styles and go out there and fish them and see which one works the best for you, and then build confidence in that certain presentation. So I know guys that just fish a straight blade buzzbait, white with a silver blade, and it works very well for them. Again, you can play with the blade choice and all those sorts of things. So buzzbaits are very effective, and they make a lot of noise, and they draw out fish from a distance, and there's a lot of adrenaline built into fishing this type of bait. So ways to manipulate this and tune this bait. For me, you know, you can fish a buzzbait right out of the box, and a lot of guys will do that. They'll just take the buzzbait out of the package and they start to fish it. A lot of times they work pretty well. A lot of the manufacturers out there that have designed buzzbaits have got it dialed in pretty good, so you can usually fish these pretty quick. But for me, you know, your knot placement, those sorts of things can make a difference. You can also figure out ways to bend the blade so you can get to swim left or right. So if I'm retrieving the bait in, it'll be a nice steady plop. If I go really fast, it'll actually take off to the right or take off to the left. And those are good ways of casting around objects. If you're going to cast around the outside edge of a dock and then have it work the dock line, and then when you rip it, it'll actually shoot into the dock and then come back. Those are great ways to entice fish in certain situations. So the way you do that is by bending the stem of the bait. You bend the stem so that it actually dictates the position it'll drive when you run it. The lip, where the bait actually, you can see here where the bait actually bends out, or the end of the blade, you can bend that and manipulate that. And depending on which side you bend, generally there's 2 sides to a buzzbait blade. And depending on which side you bend, that'll also change the action. That'll also change on how much water it shoots out, the noise it makes, the plopping sound in the water. So there's a lot of ways to change that. And what I do, and it sounds pretty ridiculous, is your kiddie pool. Anyone who has kids, they probably have a dozen of those little plastic pools sitting all over the yard. I know we do. So I'll actually fill up one of those little plastic pools, and I'll throw it out there, and I'll just kind of, and that's how I can dictate the sound and the plopping. You might not be able to get the side-to-side movement as much as you want in such a small area, but I can at least figure out what kind of noise it makes. Otherwise, your neighborhood pond, a golf course nearby, those situations can be your best friend when trying to tune baits and get them to swim right. Whether it's a buzzbait, a swim bait, a spinner bait, a frog. Again, I go to the neighborhood pond and I'll practice casting and throw around here and there. Little streams or creeks. It doesn't need to be anything spectacular. You're not trying to catch a fish when you're testing these, but you need the water to be able to do it. So again, bending the blade or bending the stem system can make a difference. You know, the trailer you put on there can make a difference. The blade angle can make a difference. The type of blade can make a difference. You see different systems that have double buzz baits. Those can make a difference as well. So there's several variables that come into play when tuning these buzz baits to get the desired action. And again, like I said, for me, I'll get a handful and I'll make each one distinct and different. I'm not trying to sound geeky or dorky. Your wife or your husband or whether you're male or female here, you'll talk. They might think you're dorky when you get into this situation, but I actually keep notes. I'll write buzzbait. I'll take 3 or 4 different colors and I'll tune the blades differently. And I'll say the chartreuse one, I have the blades bent like this. The white one, I have the blade of the stem bent like this. The black one, I have da-da-da-da, and down the row. So that as I'm fishing these and I just go, you know what, I like the action of that one. That's exactly what I want to impede onto these fish. I will know which one it is and try and manipulate that and duplicate that across the board if I find out that specific technique and action is working well. So a little bit of leg work here. You can do some stuff. As you see, I'm sitting here in my garage. Got my rods above me. I'll manipulate them and tie them and get things ready here. And then you get in the water, so you've done some of your homework, done some of your testing and some of your stuff at home. You get in the water and actually fish them and see which ones perform the best. And then eventually you find a system that works for you. Like I said, I'll show you what this one again. This one for me has got your standard buzzbait blade over the top. It's got a stamp out of the middle, and on the inside of it you'll see there's another little blade. Same shape and style, just smaller size. That one really kicks off a ton of vibration and noise. And I've caught a lot of fish on this. And this is actually one I'll probably start throwing when we hit the water here shortly and see if I can get a couple of these fish to bite on it. So again, the color to me hasn't been a huge dictating factor. Again, this is chartreuse and white, seems to be a go-to of mine for a lot of bodies of water. But I've caught a lot of fish on black buzzbaits, white buzzbaits. I used to fish a lot of chartreuse and orange buzzbaits, and caught some big fish on bright colors, caught some big fish on dull colors. Had one season where black and gold was the hottest thing I've ever tried on my line for a buzzbait. So color, again, it comes to confidence. If there's a color that's working for you and you believe it's going to work for you, stick with it and give it a shot. So as far as the rod and reel goes that I use with buzzbaits, I'll generally use something along the lines of like an 843 or an 844 G Loomis rod. So you got a medium heavy action rod for throwing these baits, and I usually go 7 foot or 7.6 so I can sling them out there a long ways. And generally, I'm throwing a braided line. You want these baits to stay on the surface most of the time, and I'm generally fishing about a 30-pound braid. And I got a Shimano Chronorc reel on there, and that's usually, whether it be a 6.2 to 1 or 7 to 1, something with a fast retreat so you can pick up the line when it hits the water, and then vary your speeds. You can slow down and just get a nice blop, 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 or you can rip it fast and right across the surface. And it also depends on your speed, how much water you're shooting off to the side. So again, a 7.6 rod, medium heavy action, and that Shimano Chronorc reel or a Shimano Curado or anything in the nature there, something in the 6 to 1, 6.2 to 1, even 7 to 1 type gear ratio. So a lot of options out there for setups, and that's just the way I like to do it, and very effective. And the bait casting for me works the best. But if you're a spinning guy, if that's what you're fishing, you can definitely use a spinning rod on the same action too. I've had many friends in the boat that prefer to use spinning rods, especially with throwing buzzbaits when you got wind and whatnot. So I prefer bait casting with that setup. Works very well. 30-pound Power Pro braid, that new Super Slick Cast Like a Dream. That's what I got tied on here. I got the Timber Super Slick line, 30-pound test, and we'll see how this works. So buzzbait fishing, like I said, one of my most exciting ways to fish. If you want to get the adrenaline going, it's a great way to target these bass and pike and even guys who are throwing for muskies. So as far as the cover that is concerned, we're going to start off, we're going to fish early in the morning. We're going to try and hit these fish when they're up in the shells and the water's a little cooler. You're going to be feeding on fish. I like to fish around lily pad areas, around inside dock lines, I like to fish in open spots. I'll even plop them across the lily pads with that flat bottom and the hook on the top like you see on the buzzbaits. You can actually skip them across the lily pads, and those ways seem to work pretty well. So let's go out there, give them a shot, see what happens, and hope we can catch a few fish here. So stay tuned, we'll get in the water. There's one, smack that modified buzzbait. Feels like a pretty big fish. Oh yeah, big old bass. Oh. There you go. Smack that buzzbait. What a nice healthy 3-pounder there. Modified buzzbait. How that worked is, like you said, we bent the blades out to get a different clicking noise. We tried it a few different times. You can do different things with your buzzbaits to get water to spray, do all those sorts of things. Plenty of good options there to modify buzzbaits and spinnerbaits like we showed you earlier in the show. So, desired action, sound, splash, vibration. Some of the things to consider when you're using baits that have blades or spinners on them. And this is just that buzzbait there from Flamin' Lures, and I just modified and bent those blades out a little more, so it kicked out a little more water, and you saw the outcome. Good one. End of the cast. Just jumping up there. Again, smack that buzzbait. What a nice healthy bass. There he is. It's about 2.5 pounder. Again, modified buzzbait. Topwater fishing for bass can be just a riot. We're back here in the garage again after a good day of fishing, and as you saw, we caught a few fish on those buzzbaits. Again, very exciting to see that blow up, that surface fishing, and that was the thing. We found the right technique that worked. We found the right action. We tuned in that one bait that seemed to catch most of the fish, and that's what we're going on. So keeping that water consistent, getting the same vibration, the same noise, the things that you want. Again, we started off throwing maybe 2, 3, 4 different baits and ended up finding that one bait that seemed to catch the most fish. So after manipulating and testing some of these baits, we found one that caught fish. We caught, like you saw on camera there, 3-pounder or 2.5 pounder, some smaller fish, some pike even ate it. So in a matter of an hour or so or less, half hour, we caught a handful of fish, missed a few fish, had a good time. And that's the name of the game, is having fun out there, but using some of these skill sets to dictate not just the presentation that you know how to fish, but to change how that presentation fishes by manipulating the blade, the stem, adding the skirt, all those sorts of things that we talked about. So don't take things for face value all the time. When it comes out of the package, tweak them a little bit. Get the exact desired action that you want. We have the ability to do that. So play around with it, have some fun. If anything, maybe it gets you out of your wife's hair and you're out in the yard playing in the kids' pool, kids are swimming, you're doing something productive, so next time you hit the water, you're catching more fish. So hopefully you learned a few tips today. Like I said earlier in the episode, next week we're going to actually go out and show you how to manipulate everything, the entire gamut, everything from panfish plastics to bass plastics to crankbaits to you name it. Manipulating is going to be the name of the game in the next Deck Talk episode. Show you ways to do things to your presentation other than how you see it when you pull it out of the package to catch more fish. So, Matt Johnson with Deck Talk. Thanks for watching. Get out there, have some fun, enjoy this beautiful weather, and we'll see you next week.